Welcome everyone to the first episode of Video Game Book Club Mini, which is essentially a smaller version of Video Game Book Club. This time around, I am joined by, what should I call you, General J? Genji?
Yeah, Genji, General J, whoever, use your fancy.
I say hi, Genji.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
The game we decided to play was New Pokémon Snap on the Nintendo Switch. The official website describes the game as an adventure that will, quote, take you from island to island on an ecological survey, photographing Pokemon and building your own Pokemon photo decks. But that's how the website describes the game. How would we describe the game? Question 1. How would you describe the game to someone in one sentence?
Imagine being a child in the back seat of a car, but you can control where you're looking and you can take cool photos along the way of mythical creatures that you have seen over the course of your life growing up.
New Pokemon Snap is about taking pictures of Pokemon without their consent. The sequel. What are your experiences with non-mainline Pokemon titles?
Where do I begin? So, Pokemon XD, Pokemon Colosseum on the GameCube.
Hold up, Genji. Do you still have the original copy?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've still got them.
Oh my god. Do never sell that, man. You know how much that thing is worth?
A lot. No, I've got both XD and Colosseum. I'm pretty sure both sitting on my games shelf.
Dude, you're freaking rolling in money right now. Okay.
Those were great. So yeah, there was Pokemon Channel, there was Pokemon Safari on the DS, there was Pokemon Trozy, there was Pokemon racing Pikachu along the map with the stylus.
Wait, is that the Pokemon Dash?
Yeah, Pokemon Dash.
Okay.
There was the Magikarp jump on the phone. There was Pokemon Go. Yeah, just pretty much so many different Pokemon games growing up.
So for me, I'm very similar to you, Genji. I played quite a bit of non-mainline Pokemon titles, ranging from Pokemon Snap, beat that multiple times on the N64 and on the Wii. Rest in peace, Virtual Console. I also played the Pokemon Stadium games. Not sure if you heard of this one, Pokemon Conquest. That was on the DS. It had a bunch of like ever heard of that one? It's like a tactical RPG.
I've heard of it. I've seen it. I've not played it, but I've definitely seen footage of it.
Yeah, it was a really cool concept. I really enjoyed that one. I also played Pokemon Pinball, Pokemon Puzzle League, also a great one. Another one that you mentioned, Pokemon Dash, and of course, the most important, highly critically acclaimed non-mainline Pokemon game, Pokemon Channel, where you just watch TV with Pikachu.
That was such a great game.
Amazing. Greatest gameplay of all time.
Speaking of which, hits me, did you ever play Pokemon Pinball? I'm not sure if you mentioned that.
Yes, that was the one I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Dude, that game. Oh my god, there's so many memorable non-mainline Pokemon titles. I really wish they'd bring some of these back. Give it another shot. I feel like it would do good, but who knows, man? With Pokemon Snap 2, or new Pokemon Snap being released, it's possible.
Anything is possible. Pokemon cooking with the Pokemon with the Farfetch. Cooking with Farfetch. Instead of cooking Mama, you have to cook your favorite Pokemon.
And it's funny? That would sell.
100%. 100%.
Question 3. What are 3 things you liked about the game?
I'd have to easily go number 1 is that the Pokemon look the best they have ever looked. I mean, you've got stuff from the GameCube and then the newer stuff, but that just the detail that the Switch provides for what you can do, whether it be the environment or the Pokemon, is the best it's ever been, especially when you're traversing and you get to take photos of Bidoof in the very first level.
Hell yeah. And it's crazy, it's just like when you come okay, this video isn't supposed to be ragging on Sword and Shield, but I can't help but compare the two, considering they're both on the same console. But new Pokemon Snap looks way better than Sword and Shield. Am I wrong to say that?
And Pokemon Snap was not made by Game Freak.
Exactly.
So I think that says it all.
Yeah.
I think the care that Pokemon Snap has received is just speaking wonders of arguably the lack of passion that you sometimes see with, not necessarily a lack of passion, but because it's been going on for so long and Pokemon games are pretty much now a yearly based thing, they just don't have the time.
Or they kind of gotten like lazier with some of the.
Yeah, well, you see it with some of the Call of Duty games also, is that by having to, or Assassin's Creed, is by having to pump out a game every single year, you create the problem that you can't give the attention and TLC to it, unlike what you see in Pokemon Snap, where it's a different company. They get to have a little bit more freedom regarding the look of it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but you just see the difference that another studio has compared to what Game Freak has these days.
Another thing that I enjoyed about the game was the variation of the night and day cycle. Because at least from what I remember from the N64 version, each of those levels played exactly the same every single time, right? From what you recall?
I never actually played it, but from what I can remember seeing is that everything was a preset thing because you didn't have your multiple levels and you didn't have your star system and that in the original game. It was just one dedicated level.
just one same level. So I really enjoyed the fact that they had a 9-day cycle because, well, if you think about it, like, you know, Pokemon interact with each other, interact with the environment differently depending on night and day. Like, for instance, it's like if it's daytime, you'll see the... What's a good example? Okay, Hoot, right? Is one. Yeah. Like if it's daytime, he's sleeping. No, he's hiding inside the tree, the little hole inside the tree, hiding away, tucked over there. Well, the moment it's night, you can just see them wide open, wide awake, flying around. Just like things like that really bring the whole game to life, similar to what Genji was saying. So that was a nice little touch. And then also, what surprised me was the research level thing, where the further, pretty much the better pictures you take or the more rare pictures you take of the Pokemon, you unlock these research level tiers. And then depending on which research level you're on, will unlock more variation to the Pokemon that appear in the level. So that right there was also really one thing that I did like.
So I think because we've had so many Pokemon games at this point, we're up to what, Gen 8 with Sword and Shield, there's nearly 1,000 different kinds of Pokemon. So, and 1,000 if you count variants of like Articuno, Zapdos, so that you've got your Galarian forms and their regular forms and all that stuff. So just seeing Pokemon from different regions spanning from Generation 1 to Generation 8.
That you do it. That's true, huh? Because the first game only had the original 150. Forgot about that. Okay.
So because it was so early on, and that just shows how long it's been since we've had a Pokemon Snap game, is that we've got, I mean, it's not, I think it's about a little over 200 different Pokemon in the game, but they've got, sure, a lot of them from the first generation, but they've got some from each other generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really cool thing. And even in the game, you've got some Pokemon, Comfey, I think it is, the like reefs of flowery Pokemon. Yeah, like you have different variants of that, or you have
like the Deerling. The Deerling was another one.
Yeah. And the giant butterfly Pokemon that you see in the early thing, I forget the name of it.
Yeah.
But, you've got the pink one, but then later on in the game also you have the blue variant of it. So just having different variants of even the same Pokemon creates a world that feels a lot more alive.
Another thing I liked about the game, and I was definitely not expecting it, was the inclusion of Todd Snap, who was the main character that you played from the previous Pokemon Snap game. So I remember when I first saw him, I'm like, This dude looks familiar. He looks like, and so I actually looked it up like right after I saw him, and lo and behold, yes, that is the same character as from the first game, except he's much older, he has more experience, and I just thought that was a really cool like little touch. They even had mentions of Professor Oak in there as well, and it was even cool. It was also cool to see that Todd Snap is now mentoring another up and coming photographer. I don't even remember the kid's name, but. It was just cool to see that cycle, begin and come back. Like it went full circle and it just came back, and I was like, wow, freaking hitting me in the nostalgia right now.
I never played the original Pokemon Snap, but as soon as he appeared on screen, I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but I have a feeling he's connected to the first game somehow.
That was a pretty big inclusion. I was like, what the heck?
Just quickly throwing in the photo editing aspect of the game, I think that's a really cool feature when the game's about taking photos of the Pokemon, being able to edit your photos. It's very limited initially in when you first take the photo, but being able to save any photo that you like, even if it's not one you submit to the professor, but saving every photo and being able to edit it, zooming out, zooming in, so you can zoom into the Pokemon. There's a lot of editing function with your photos, being able to upload to social media. I think that's a really nice touch to add to the longevity of the game.
One more thing, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say. Bidoof butt. Another thing I liked about the game was the inclusion of alternate paths that you could actually take. Because that was definitely one thing I was trying to figure out. I was like, these worlds are like large and vast and open. It'd be cool if you could take a different perspective or a different like route through this through each of the levels. And lo and behold, my questions were answered, and they did eventually introduce that feature in, which I thought was pretty cool. It's not a huge drastic change, because eventually these paths do converge with the original path, but it's just nice to have that little variation to change things up that I really did enjoy. And sometimes you can even find hidden Pokemon in that path that you normally wouldn't, just taking the standard path. So I thought that was another pretty cool feature. Question 4. What are 3 things you did not like about the game, and how would you improve it?
So I'm going to jump in with the first one of saying the lack of evolution. I feel like that's a step down from the first game. I know they've got a lot of more Pokemon included compared to the very first one, but I think by removing the ability to interact with Pokemon and not have them evolve, sure, canonically and lore-wise, it makes sense for them not to evolve by throwing an apple at them and having the Chameleon fall into a volcano and emerge as a Charizard.
Man, everybody remembers that, actually.
I think that by removing it, it almost removes a level of interactivity you have with the world. I feel like it creates a lot more of the sense that you are in this cart just observing the Pokemon, and by removing the interactivity, it creates a bit more of a distance between you and getting into the game environment because of that lack of removal of player choice.
Are you 100% sure, though, that there is no evolution in the game?
From what I've experienced and from what everyone else has said online and what I've seen on Twitter, there's not been any mentions of evolutions. The closest thing you have is the thing where you throw the orb at it for the boss Pokemon. I don't want to say any because I don't want to spoil it. But that's arguably the closest thing you have to any form of evolution, and that's just making them glow pretty and look cool.
Okay.
I've not seen anything online of any Pokemon evolving at all, and I've not come across any.
Just watch in the comment section. Oh my god, are you guys dumb? Of course they evolve when you fast forward 10 seconds in the first level and you throw an apple on top of the Pikachu's head.
And then you have to spin around your camera 10 times, and you have to sing the Pokemon song into the microphone, and all of a sudden then Pikachu evolves into a Charizard.
Oh my god. Yeah, I'm just waiting for those comments now.
Unless DLC has been released, and then...
Oh shoot, I didn't think of that. What, they might pull a Game Freak and just add it.
Yeah. Add DLC to give more paths, and it's the Evolution Island.
Nah, we're reviewing this vanilla.
Exactly.
Okay, so one thing I did not like about the game, it's kind of weird because they technically did have it in the game, but I feel like it came a little too late. And a lot of this is revolving around quality of life changes and just giving more players options to figure out, how they want to play the game. So in the game, I guess it's a spoiler, but you eventually get the ability to speed up the cart, and you even get access to a burst mode feature for your camera. What I don't understand is why didn't they include these options like earlier in the game, right? Like the speed up feature would have been amazing to have. A slow down feature, even stopping the Neo one. I remember you mentioning that, Genji, during our initial conversations. Giving players the access to burst mode earlier, and being able to control how many pictures you take by holding the picture button, rather than relying on preset numbers. Like you tried to, right, Genji, the burst function.
Yeah. So you can either take 1, 3, 4, or 6 or something.
But what's dumb is like the moment you press it, it does all those photos. Like I wish there was an option to just hold the button and you could just keep taking like multiple pictures. It's just like stuff like that is really what I feel like could have made the game better, because Yeah, technically you only have to hit research level 2 in each level to progress. But I know there are people who are like, man, I want to get to research level 3 before I progress, like really master each of the levels and getting the right pictures. But it's like, how can you do that when all of these extra additional functions are literally saved towards the end of the game? I feel like if they brought all that stuff, improved quality of life changes, even adding like checkpoints on the map so you can decide where you want to start on the map if you only need a specific like Pokemon or set of Pokemon. I feel like stuff like that would make the game like much more enjoyable, like giving the players freedom of how they want to tackle each course. And that's my things. Quality of life changes, more options, give it to the player. Don't hold it towards the end, because by the time you get to the end of the game, you're already burnt out from Pokemon Snap. So it's like, I don't know. That's my big thing.
You've stolen both my final points.
Oh shoot, my bad. The quality of life stuff.
No stopping and starting, and also the camera features being way too late in the game.
Yeah, which is basically you agree with me though, right? Like the quality of life changes.
That's the thing. The frustrating part is that you have they include the functions to do a burst mode in that, but they don't give you the option of being able to, because once the game ends, once you use up all your photos, unless it's the first time in it, your travels end. You can't choose to continue on. You can't choose to end early. It just automatically forces you to leave the area because you've got no more photos. But yet then it's almost forcing you into that position by having a burst mode. It's on one hand giving you the opportunity to have these functions to improve the way you take photos, but it then is a detriment to the traveling through the map.
Yeah.
It's just really frustrating that you are forced to either take single photos or do burst mode, and you can't hold down a button. You can't have it tied to a different button. It all it's either their way or you can't do it at all, for lack of a better explanation. And it's so frustrating, because there's times I want to use a burst mode, but then I want to be able to just take a single photo. But they have also, because you can't change it from what I've seen.
Yeah, you can't. You
can't change it. You enter the thing and that's it. You have to choose what you've done before. And it'd just be nice, because when you're out with an actual camera, you can adjust the settings. And I understand it's not a professional photo taking game or whatever, but it's just so frustrating to not be able to make those adjustments or have it tied to a different button.
Yeah. And it's like they give you all these cool little functionalities that help improve, like, again, the quality of life part of the game. But it's just like they give you a nibble of it. Like you want more to it, but they're like, nope, sorry, we'll give you just a tiny bit, but that's it. That's all you get. It's just like if they added that stuff, it would have definitely been a much more enjoyable experience, in my opinion.
100%. And you can't stop I forget the exact name. The Neo something.
The Neo 1.
Okay, cool. The Neo 1. I was going to say the Neo Geo. So you can't stop your Neo Geo 1 while traveling through the map. And that's frustrating, because part of it is the amount of detail and, from what looks like, care that's been put into this game. And you can't just stop and just watch the Pokemon interact in that. And while something so small, it would be wonderful to be able to just stop your cart, be able to just focus on a Pokemon and really focus on getting a really good photo, especially with Pokemon that are just staying there. It may not be a huge function, but as a game where it's about seeing the Pokemon in the natural habitats,
aesthetic.
Why can't we just stop for a moment and just sit there and watch? And sure, even if Pikachu just spins around in a circle, or the Alola Raichu just constantly surfs around on a surfboard going over dunes. Just as someone who's been a fan of most of the mainline Pokemon games, being able to just stop and observe the Pokemon in a different aspect compared to what we saw in Sword and Shield would have been something that I would have loved so much to see, and would have just added so much more quality of life and enjoyment to the game that we just don't see. And I don't know if it'd be a hard thing to implement, but it would be an awesome thing to just stay there, watch the Pokemon.
This kind of ties with the quality of life change, but I think this deserves its own point to be made. I really wish there were more camera options, because as of right now, like when you're playing the game, you have the standard view and then the zoom in view, and then that's it, right? I feel like there should be more lens, like adding more lens type. Maybe a wide lens option would be cool. Like if they want to balance it into the game, maybe you can only take a certain number of wide lens shots. Like I think that would be pretty sick. Or even a panorama shot would be amazing just to have. Even if like, let's say they don't include it for the scoring of the game, just being able to have that functionality would be amazing. And to be honest, like just the two standard views, the normal view and then the zoom in view, I feel like it isn't enough. I feel like there should be one more view that you can zoom out like past the standard view, just so you can give the player more room to breathe. Because I actually I had my cousins like try out the game the other day. I had like 5 or 6 of them play the game, like one level, and one of the first things they said was, "Why is it so zoomed in all the time?" Like I want the field of view to be a little bit wider, like back up just a little bit more. So I feel like giving players that option of like camera lens types would definitely help improve just the overall feeling of the game as well.
It'd be funny if you could submit, like, depending on how in depth they were making it. Like, I get the game's geared towards children, but imagine submitting a photo to the professor and him going, "I really like the way you use your rule of thirds in taking this photo."
Oh my god, dude. That'd be crazy. If they really wanted to, they could program that in. I don't know how difficult it would be, considering.
I'm guessing it'd be really hard in that regard. Like, I really like the use of thirds. I really like how you got this Pokemon on the horizontal line.
Oh, but you gotta admit though, like if they went that far, we would be having a whole different conversation right now.
How could you even assess? How could the game even use the AI to assess how good use of your thirds are, or if you got it in the right section of it? And
I feel like if maybe the Switch had more stronger hardware, it could probably do it.
That's a really good use of artificial film grain you got there. I really like I like the blur you've got around this Pokemon.
Dude, I don't know how they would do it, if it's even possible, but if they made a Pokemon Snap 3 and they did, it would just...
That could be...
Yeah.
My only real last thing is not a major critique, but as most of the mainline Pokemon games have really good soundtracks, I just arguably find this soundtrack for New Pokemon Snap to be a little bit forgettable.
Yeah.
I personally don't really have anything that stands out per se as a track that I'm like, oh, this is a really good example of music. I know there's a few moments in the game that have music, but for the amount of times I've seen when watching videos on YouTube, some Pokemon channels and that using background music from certain Pokemon games, I just don't really see the new Pokemon Snap having a soundtrack that really resonates in the 10, 20 years down the line.
I completely agree with you, because the way Pokemon Snap or new Pokemon Snap is designed, it's all about, aesthetic, all about how the player feels. Because that's a lot of it is driven by, nostalgia for these Pokemon. And like, how do you enhance nostalgia, or how do you enhance that visual, a visual experience? It's with music, like what you're saying. Like, for instance, when you walk into, the original town in whatever Pokemon game you first played, the moment you hear that soundtrack, you're filled with emotion, and it helps enhance the experience. And I agree with you. If the more attention and care was applied to the soundtrack, give us more memorable songs, or even just like borrowing songs from previous game entries and just like remixing them so they fit more with the presentation of the game. I feel like it would do a lot, actually.
Could you imagine the level where it's a forest and having the soundtrack at night being the tune for Lavender Town?
Yes, like stuff like that would have been amazing. So another thing I did not like about the game, and Genji, you probably don't know this because you didn't really play the first game at all, right? From what you told me?
No.
Okay. So one thing I did not like about the game was there was a lack of equipment variety. Like, there wasn't enough new equipment for the core gameplay, because I'll go ahead and just break it down. The equipment that the new Pokemon Snap currently has is essentially the same as the original Pokemon Snap. So in new Pokemon Snap, you have the fluff fruit, right? It's basically the apples from the original Pokemon Snap. You also have Illumina orbs, which is essentially a PETA-friendly version of the Pester Balls. And then you also have the Melody, which is the, in this game you can just play a tune. However, in the original one, you have the Poke Flute, but the Poke Flute had different like melodies you could use, and it would actually change the way the Pokemon would dance depending on what song you played. And so technically the only new like gameplay equipment or feature was just the scan, but I mean that there isn't really much. So that was kind of like one of the things I was very disappointed with was like the lack of new equipment. I thought they would give us more ways to interact with the Pokemon. Like for instance, can you imagine if I just came up with this idea while I was on the toilet, but if you could throw in toys that Pokemon could play with, like that substitute doll that you normally see,
particular fairy doll.
Yeah, like that doll. Like imagine if they had like a wind up version of that, and you throw it out there, and then Pokemon start to like mess with it and play with it. It's just like those kind of interactions is kind of what I was hoping for, like a little bit more, because essentially it's as it stands right now, a lot of the core gameplay mechanics are basically the same as the original, which is not bad. I just hope there would be some type of evolution to it, especially the melody thing. Like I was hoping there would be other additional songs you could play to change like the mood of the Pokemon. I think that would be pretty amazing. Question 5. Please give me your final verdict and final rating of new Pokemon Snap from 0 to 10 using a 0.5 scale.
So I think the game hits on some really good moments. I think that you've got some real staying power with the online functions, the ability to take photos and edit them. But I think the game does have a few moments where it lets you down along the way with the lack of further interactivity with not only the photos, but also the Pokemon. So because of that, I will give the game 8.5 Bidoof Butts out of 10.
So I enjoyed my time with new Pokemon Snap. It gave us more of everything we wanted. More environments and more Pokemon. Basically what we've been saying about this entire Video Game Book Club video. And it's basically the original Pokemon Snap, but with the new fresh facelift, and I can really appreciate that. However, I felt that it played the entire game a bit too safe. And this is coming from a person who's played the first game quite a few times. Like many of the core game mechanics from the original Pokemon Snap were more or less the same, and I feel like they could have done a lot more. If anything, I would have loved, like this is the big thing, is I would have loved to see more quality of life changes added to the game, just to give players a higher level of flexibility in how they approach the game. Like don't limit them so much and just give them the freedom to go out there and just have fun experiences and fun adventures with these Pokemon. Just give them that freedom to take pictures how they want and when they want. So with that said, I give new Pokemon Snap a 7.5 out of 10. Would take pictures with the lens cap again. And with that said, new Pokemon Snap gets a final average rating of 8.0 out of 10. 80%. Bonus mystery question time. So me and Genji, we each created a random question. We don't know what we're going to ask of each other. But yeah, let's get started. Out of all the levels in the game, or I guess out of all the islands, which one did you enjoy playing through the most and why?
I will have to go with the ocean island section.
You picked mine! Okay, go ahead.
The reason is because I'm just a huge fan of water Pokemon. Every single Pokemon game I play, I've always started off playing with the water starter. I just inherently like water-based environments, water-based Pokemon, and I'm biased towards water. So that is why I prefer the ocean over the scary volcano.
Did you ever play the Maricopia Reef level on Sunset?
Yes, I have.
Dude,
I think I'm on level 2 to 3 on all of them.
Yeah.
So.
I'm not sure. I feel like they unlocked the Sunset like at the end of the game, or I could be wrong, but just that level. And when I was playing through it, because that was the last level I actually played through the whole game, because that was the last one I unlocked, I was just going through it and I was like, wow, this is very relaxing. Because I was like, and I was just going through that level. It's just the ambient sounds, just like the sound of Pokemon in the distance, the sound of the wind going through the palm trees. It's just everything at that moment like connected with me, and I'm like, this is a Pokemon Snap experience. It's just unfortunate, like what you said is like we can't stop the Neo Geo one.
Geo. Yeah.
just to sit there and just because honestly, I would literally just leave that level open in the background and just listen the entire time. Like I'd be completely fine with that. But man, yeah, the water section was just mesmerizing to me.
Imagine if it was VR.
Oh my god. We know that's never going to happen though, because Nintendo doesn't like powerful hardware.
Exactly.
But yes, if that was, oh my god, freaking VR Pokemon Snap, I think I'd give this game a 9.
Easily an
or
11.
higher. Yeah, freaking maybe 10. Just the relaxation of it.
I'm pulling a Batman Arkham City shit on this when the reviewer gave it an 11 out of 10. Pokemon VR Snap 11 out of 10. So time for my question. This is going to be a good one.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Now, imagine 5-10 years from now, a new Pokemon Snap gets released. Let's just call it new Pokemon Snap. Snappier than ever, snappier than a Basculin.
Newer Pokemon Snap.
Newer Pokemon Snap, snappier than ever, snappier than a Basculin.
Okay.
And the legendary is a Basculin because it's a Piranha.
Okay.
So, what do you think the best but most absurd thing that they could add into the game could be to improve it and make it better?
Like, okay, when you say absurd, you mean like an idea that's just far out there?
Something that's just really far out there that you wouldn't expect but would make the game...
Dude, I mean, we literally just spoke about it, actually. The VR.
Yeah.
Like, high quality, like, next level VR. Pokemon Snap. And I'm just like picturing it in my head, like how it would work too. But just having that ability to move around. And then this time though, you wouldn't have the Neo one. You'd actually be able to wander around.
We could stop your Neo Geo and hop out of it and have a wander around or something.
Dude, yes. Like something like that would be amazing. Maybe not like if they're struggling with like resources, I guess. Hardware resources, maybe you could like stop it in certain like areas. But still, just that ability to see everything in like these highly detailed Pokemon in VR, I think it would be amazing and also a little bit terrifying. But yeah, VR Pokemon Genji was pretty out there.
You're telling me you wouldn't go out of the game and go up to a Pokemon and just give it a giant hug?
Oh, I would.
Nah.
In VR.
Hug a Tyranitar.
Yeah, I'm in. What about you, Genji?
I reckon VR would be a really cool function to
include. Are you same with me on this one?
Yeah, I have to. I had other absurd ideas.
Well, let's hear it. Let's hear it after you talk about the VR.
No, they were way too absurd. That,
okay.
You know.
now I want to hear it, dude. Now you have to tell me. Let's hear it, Genji.
So, you've just arrived in the first level. You've travelled, you found a really cute and cuddly Skitty. You hop out your Neo Geo, you go up, and you kidnap it.
Okay. I'm in. Wait, that's it? Yeah. That's the game?
Yeah, you got it.
What does that have to do with new Pokemon Snap? Where are the pictures? Oh, the mugshot. I gotcha.
This is called New Pokemon Deal.
I think you say new Pokemon Snatch.
Fuck, that's exactly... I went to say it and I was like, fuck, what's the name of it? I know, I'll go with Steel. I was meant to say new Pokemon Snatch.
Oh my god.
You play as Team Rocket, and you break into people's houses on your Neo Geo 1, or Neo Geo 2 at that point. You break into their houses and snatch the Pokemon from poor defenseless children while they sleep. And then you take photos of them and send them back to the crying children.
Well, that is so evil. But that is a Team Rocket edition. I like it.
You can sell Pokemon, new Pokemon Snap, snappier than ever, and new Pokemon Snatch, snatchier than ever. You could buy both copies.
And that concludes another episode of Video Game Book Club Mini. I don't know why I said another. I mean, that concludes currently the only episode of Video Game Book Club Mini. Hopefully we do more of these, and hopefully, Genji, you will join me in the future for more of these videos.
I would love to. Thank you for having me on.
All right. So everyone, thank you for tuning in and watching. And, thank you, Genji, for joining me in this episode because it was really hard to find someone who wanted to actually play Pokemon Snap with me. So thank you, man.
Anytime.
All right, everybody. You take care. You have a good one. And we'll catch you in the next episode of Video Game Book Club Mini. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Au revoir.
Track you down and hear the truth coming straight from you. Never knew where you had run your only son. The child you never knew I could have been so